Yeah, well, it's here. I think college basketball getting ready to tip off. Clearly a little bit earlier than ever been before. And to open on a Tuesday night instead of normally a weekend game is probably a little bit different. But we're going to get into it fast. We have Chicago State on Tuesday, Montana State on Friday. Both teams a little bit unknown as we get into the early part of the season. And we're going to have to be ready to attack, I would say, some changing defenses for the first time. And then, from a defensive perspective, we're really going to have to, just nuts and bolts here. Getting back in transition better, rebounding better, and finding a way to play with maybe some unique lineups as well, depending on who's available for the first week health-wise. So, we're excited. And, I think at the end of the day, we're looking forward for another opportunity.
Open it up for first question, Mike.
Yeah, just to follow up on your point about maybe some players not being available, can you give us an idea who's...
I think most of them will all be game time decisions. Right now I don't think Race Thompson nor Al Durham will be available for at least this week, maybe both games, due to their lingering issues. And we got some other guys just with some nicky-nack stuff that are going to have to either push through or we're going to have to find ways of getting a little bit more rest, because I think once these games start, they're not going to stop. And, it's just, one day after another, we're going to have to be ready. So, it's a concern of ours right now. Clearly, you don't want to go into the season banged up, but we've sort of hit a little speed bump here in the last 7 days just with some stuff that's, it's pretty much, it's knocked some guys out of practice, which has hurt us.
Sure. What about, you mentioned different defenses. What kinds of things are you expecting there?
I would say zone, number one, and then maybe some pressing to zone. Montana State in particular has a philosophy, I think, where they'll play a matchup, which is a lot of trading cutters and switching cutters, and that's always problematic at the beginning of the season, especially with young players who haven't seen, so to speak, the changing defenses, from going from one to another and having to be aggressive without thinking. So, we're going to spend some time here the rest of this week really just spending some time offensively and in terms of trying to do a good job, the best we can here early with zone offense and some things that we're not seeing, as regular here in the first 20 practices or whatever.
Coach, you talk about the nagging injuries and the guys that you don't have. Has that prevented you from really paring down with the rotation you think you're going to be able to get to, or is it still just a man-by-man, each game-by-game basis?
Yeah, it's become a little bit problematic because the practice reps and everything that we're getting are guys that really haven't been in the games before, or our younger players who are being forced into immediate roles. Hopefully we'll get a couple guys back here sooner rather than later, and that will help. But it's prevented us from playing, I would say, our top 10.
Kind of a double-barrel question, a little bit on the health, just kind of where Devontae is, and then on Thursday you talked about Rob as a guy who was seizing his opportunity, I think was maybe the term that you used with Devontae, a little bit sidelined. How did you see him maybe grow, and as you were able to evaluate his performance Thursday, kind of what did you come away with?
Well, Devontae's he's moved back into full go for the first time here. He was involved in some non-contact stuff the last 2 days, so he's been cleared to practice today, which hopefully will go well. And knock on wood, he'll be available for the game. That'd be a big help for us. Especially last game, not only having Rob and Romeo basically having to play as many minutes as they played too many. And Rob's done a nice job. I think he's well ahead of probably any point guard as a freshman that I've coached, just in terms of his demeanor, his smarts, and it's on both ends. He's got to get better, clearly, but he's definitely made the most of his time. He's earned trust right away from the staff, and I think that's always a big thing as a young guy.
Archie, looking at the Chicago State roster, it looks like their leading scorer is gone from last year. They lose 4 or 5 seniors as well. So not only with an unknown going into opening night, but how much more difficult does it make knowing that maybe you don't know what to expect from the opponent, in particular from Chicago State?
Yeah, without question. New coach, new coaching staff, and tons of new players. So we're going to have to be, really concentration-wise, just good at what we do in our base stuff. And then as the game goes along, we'll try to adjust and make some adjustments based on what they're trying to do. We'll probably not see, a ton of, footage on them. And it is a new staff and a new team, so it'll be some, we're going to have to be good at what we do. You'd have to, for the most part, kind of concentrate and execute our system, and we'll go from there.
Coach, we're on the eve of the first game. As you look at your roster, is there any couple themes that, as you look at it, that make you tough to deal with for other teams this year?
I think we have a lot of different types of combinations that we can play when we're at full strength. And I think just defensively, we have some versatility that we don't have to be one-dimensional. So I think, just being able to play a different style, game in and game out, depending on who we're playing. And clearly, you have a couple guys that you can get in spots where you feel like offensively they can get a play. They can make a play for you. I'm not sure we had a ton of that last year. Obviously, J-Mo played right through him, primarily. But we got to be able to play Duran, more minutes and get him involved because he's good down there. And we have to get Romeo his seams and his opportunities to get to the basket as well. And, our guys have to really value the pass. I think if we're really playing at top speed and we're really playing well, we're an aggressive team that's delivering the ball, to the paint, but it's also being kicked and passed and moved. And we have a lot of different guys touching it. And, to me, the more guys you have that can impact your team on a given night, the better chance you have of winning when somebody's not playing well. So my hope is depth and versatility on both ends.
I know you can only play within the rules, obviously, but when you have a young team like this, how many practices would be enough at this point? Do you wish you had another month to be ready, or what's your thought process there?
Yeah, I guess every coach probably wants a little bit more time to practice. I think practice is something we take a lot of pride in. Obviously, you get better as you practice, especially if you're not playing as many minutes in a game. But, in all reality, the games teach you, what you can and can't do right now, and then you got to go back to work. But, it's here. Every team in the country is going to start playing. They all start at some level of optimism, and then it becomes reality of where you really are and where you got to go. So, for us, we'll find out a little bit more about ourselves tomorrow night.
Talked a little bit about it Thursday, but 32 points off 19 turnovers, and I know transition offense is important to you, but is there something about this team that you think maybe can make that something of a theme, being able not just to turn opponents over but quickly turn it into points? Or is that maybe just kind of what you were getting out of Southern Indiana Thursday night?
No, I really feel like defense to offense is a priority for us. Not that we're on a hunt to gamble and steal balls, but I think defense to offense is the hardest thing to guard. The better you are on defense, the better your offense can tend to be, especially if a team is turning it over. And we have a long team, we have a quick team, and I think you have a lot of activity with the way that we try to play. So I think, if we're dialed in, defensive stops, certainly we want to take advantage of the numbers game from defense to offense. That's a big theme for us, converted.
Saw some of the impact of the new guys last week, but how much of those guys just kind of embraced, the roles that they could have this year, the expectations, and the load that could be on their shoulders?
It's hard, you want those guys to all have their opportunities. Every guy's at a different stage in terms of where they're at, in terms of learning what we want and how we want to do it. And none of them are perfect, but the only way they get better is to have their opportunities to do it under fire. And I thought it was really important moving forward that at least Demezy, made a couple shots. I think that made him feel a little better, obviously. He's not perfect, but he's a big, strong kid who can really run, that can stretch the floor for us. He's just got to keep learning the game, not turning it over, and defensively trying to do exactly what we're asking him to do because, without question right now, we're planning on having to play him a little bit, especially as Jerome's going through, some of his health stuff. So, Demezy's a guy that's got to step in and be ready. Obviously, Rob and Romeo, they've played a ton of minutes here early in the season, but they got to get better. It is what it is. Everyone's got to get better. And but I do think that those guys, as long as they keep improving, all of them can have a chance to help us.
Kind of going off of the success you had in transition in the exhibition game, what do you maybe need to do better to get better in the half court? Is it maybe a little bit better screening, better cuts?
It's just execution. It's execution, and don't turn the ball over. That's a big thing for us. It'll be execution and screening, just making sure that we get the ball where we want to get to. And if it doesn't work, at that point in time, can we flow and play the game with one another? And that's where we're struggling the most right now. We're a hodgepodge when things break down, and we got to get organized. Once we got to get organized, I think we have a chance to be, take a next step offensively. But, like I said, our team's got to execute. We got to do things and not turn it over. And if it doesn't work, we got to play out of the post, and we have to be able to play off the drive. And I think from there we can get good looks.
Kind of on the other side of the coin from talking about the younger guys, what are you looking for from some of your senior leadership right now, not only helping out the younger guys during these opening days of the season, but just from helping you guys get through these early games?
Yeah, I mean, this is the hope that some of those guys who returned from a year ago are much more prepared to play. I think that if you just watch us, unfortunately, we had two veteran guards not in either game, for the most part. So that, we haven't got a chance to even get that depth going a little bit. But I think with Juwan and Justin, they're much more comfortable. Zach, much more comfortable playing. So I think those guys just doing their job. They know it starts defensively with us. We got to be ready to go. That's a sense of pride, is being able to, start the game off and show the way in terms of how hard we have to play. And then from an offensive perspective, we just got to keep working to get chemistry.